because you got to remember, these are kids and they don't want to disappoint people and whatnot. And so I've had kids in the past where I feel like they were just kind of giving me an answer because they knew that's what I wanted to hear, or that's what my fan base wanted to hear. And so when I talked with Biggs on, I believe it was Saturday or Sunday, I didn't come out right off the bat and say, hey, I cover the Nebraska Cornhuskers. And he told me, hey, I'm very interested in what Nebraska and Oklahoma State bring to the table. But I will say this. He talked about Oklahoma State a lot more than he did about Nebraska. He also told me he was never a Nebraska fan growing up, that he cheered for Kansas. And so,
wow.
I mean, I do think
that's pretty common around these parts. Nebraska has no tradition.
So I do think that, Nebraska has a chance. But the last couple of days I've heard, basically like people are wanting to throw Biggs in their starting lineup next year. And I don't feel like that's the case at this point. I really feel like Nebraska's probably not even in the driver's seat. I really feel like Oklahoma is that team.
Oklahoma State.
Or, Oklahoma State.
Which baffles me. I mean, what do they got going right now? Travis Ford, they're losing a bunch. I don't quite get that one.
They're not very good. That's for sure.
So you're saying basically he's just putting on a show for people right now.
I don't want to, I just know that he told me that he was very interested about Oklahoma State and Nebraska, but talked a lot more about Oklahoma State with me than he did about Nebraska, and then flat out told me, I wasn't a Nebraska fan growing up. I cheered for Kansas. Yeah. And so I just don't feel like the connection is maybe as strong as some people want to make it.
These things change on an hourly basis,
and they do.
With 19, 20, 21-year-olds. So we'll wait and see. But the
he'd
latest
be a great
seems
get.
Like he'd be a very good get for Nebraska, who may be down, assuming that Christopher Neiman takes the hardship route. Diaz has already left the program. That would leave them, if somebody else decides to leave, and we're hearing news that somebody else on the current roster may leave the program, that leaves you with 7 scholarship players for next year.
Yep.
And maybe as many as 6 scholarships that Nebraska will have available to offer. How many of those do they give out, you think?
I can't imagine very many. I mean, they're running out of time here, and if he doesn't want to go the JUCO route necessarily, besides for a guy like Biggs, who's maybe a local product, I just can't imagine them filling all those needs. And who knows? Maybe a reality show's coming down the road where some lucky Nebraska kid gets to try out for this team. Maybe we can throw Jake Bogus a tryout. But I mean, the thing is I can't imagine them filling all those scholarships. And if they do, I can tell you this: they're probably not going to be the quality of players you want to see here in a couple of years once Tim Miles has gotten established a little bit more.
Josh, over under 10 wins next year?
I'll say over. I'll say over. I mean, it depends on the non-conference schedule.
Exactly. Here's a good reason.
I'm not going to get into that, though. I've already lost a stake once.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
On Nebraska basketball.
Yeah, you had 16 wins over under with Jake this year, and you felt very sure. Have you had that stake dinner?
No,
yet?
I haven't.
Okay.
He hasn't brought it up.
All right, stop reminding. But yeah, don't remind him. Brian Rosenthal, Lincoln Journal-Star, just tweeted, Tim Miles says he plans on softening up non-conference schedule this season. Not a surprise.
No.
It wasn't that soft last year, but it was the hardest it's been for a while. Oh, begatched that ACC giant Wake Forest at home and Oregon, that NIT Oregon team at home, but it's going to get softer. And frankly, I mean, Danny Nee was a master of this as well. Beef up the wins. You gotta beef up the wins.
I think you do that for a couple years, and then once Tim Miles has his own team in and his own established, then you start to judge, well, is he playing a non-conference soft schedule every year? Because they're going to have to win some ball games to at least attract some kids down the road, and he's got to sell some hope to some of these recruits.
Well, the problem with that is that if you do play a very weak non-conference schedule, 500 in conference is not going to get you into the tournament in many cases. Your RPI is not going to be high enough.
Worked for Nebraska under Danny Nee many times. He was often 500 or barely better than 500 the years he made the NCAA tournament.
I'm just saying. I think that Northwestern was teetering there. They were
close. 8-10.
They were 8-10. I mean, one win away from being 500 in conference in the number one.
I bet you they would have gotten it.
The number one RPI conference in the country.
Yeah, they would have gotten it. They needed one more win.
8 wins, and I look back at some of Danny Nee's teams. The Big 8 was good. It was not the number one conference in the country at that point. The ACC or the Big East were much better.
You never know. It depends on the year. I mean, I was amazed. Nee got into the NCAA tournament a couple times at 7-7 in the Big 8, and then those were good teams, but it's not as deep of a league naturally as the Big 12 with more teams. And then, but his second to last year, people forget this. Nee's second to last year, they were 10-6 in the Big 12 and missed the NCAA tournament.
Yep.
Unbelievable. Rosenthal also tweeting that Tim Miles says, Andre Almeida, slimmest he's ever been. Get ready for this, folks. 330 pounds. Wow. All right. That fires me up.
He's got to get in shape, and he's been fighting this. I know he's had injuries with the knee, but he's been fighting the battle of the bulge since he arrived on campus. Yep. It's got to be a metabolism thing or something. I mean,
I think it's got to be. I think
right?
it's got to be part of the workout thing. I mean, you just can't work out aggressively, and when that's the case, I mean, take me for instance. If I'm not working out, I need to stop eating less, and that's a problem for me, and maybe that's a problem for him because, I mean, he's just never been able to.
Is he eating sandwiches while riding the bike?
No, he's not. But I don't know how much time he's spending in the Nebraska cafeteria.
You think he'll be a factor next year? Either of you two?
Maybe in a limited role, but I can't imagine him, miraculously.
I think he's going to be a 10 and 6 type guy.
I think that's being very aggressive.
How much weight does he need to drop to do that?
He needs to lose 60 to 80 pounds.
Yeah,
I would say 40. I mean, get down to that 295 mark or whatnot. But I just can't imagine him being a 10 and 6 guy.
Well, what did he average last year? That
was before my time.
Yeah, I think he was 6'8",
okay.
6'8" points a game. But yeah, he could be. He's got a nice touch around the rim. He rebounds well.
Shoots a lot of free throws in practice right now.
Yeah, if you could surround him with somebody in a UBEL, you would have to think that will play beside him. Maybe if Faro Alihozek makes this team, which I think they really need to go get him at this point. They can't if there's a 6'10", in his case 6'9", 6'10" guy out there. I don't think Nebraska can afford to say we don't want you.
And he was playing pretty well before that whole dismissal of his whole team went down. I think he was averaging 15 and 7 or something like that. So I mean, he was
very good shooter, very good.
Yeah, and
shooter.
He has played at the D1 level before. We got to remember that. And so he had a little bit of success at the D1 level. He just moved to JUCO. It wasn't because he was dumb or anything. He wanted to go to junior college because he felt like he was kind of getting a raw deal with a new coach that came in that didn't recruit him. And so, if you can land him, I think he's in Spain right now.
Yeah,
you try and get him.
We're going to talk Husker spring football for about 10 minutes when we come back. I do want to get Josh Harvey's thoughts real quickly. Baseball this weekend against Iowa. I know you guys are going to have full coverage, whether it's you or somebody else. Yep. But how good are the Hawkeyes? What are we looking at here for the 3-3 Big Ten Huskers?
Well, you look at it and you go, well, the Huskers should split or go 2-1. But you said that about last week too at Northwestern. I do think Nebraska probably rebounds this week at home. I don't know what it was about Northwestern, but obviously they just didn't like playing there. Maybe it was the fact that there was probably only about 100 fans watching them. Who knows? But I think they rebound this week against Iowa. Iowa's definitely not the cream of the crop in the Big Ten. And Nebraska, I believe, swept them last year. So I'm expecting good things in a rebound performance this week.
Tom Lemke getting the start tonight, 6:35, and then Saturday's game, 2:05, Sunday at 1:05. By the way, Kansas City Royals, they have their season opener in L.A. tonight against Pujols and the Angels.
That game here on this station?
Oh, yeah. All 162 games.
You can't stop.
All 162. Wow. I knew.
Don't know if you heard that yet.
Well, I mean, I had heard that you guys were covering the Royals, but I didn't realize it was all 162.
All 162, baby.
That's impressive. I might even listen tonight because I hate the Angels.
Well, you'll hear plenty of that.
It's good to have hate. To harbor hate.
I'm a Texas Ranger fan,
thing.
and
sure.
So...
I'll be going to a show in Omaha tonight, but I do know there will be times this year where I might just go back to my childhood
and listen
and fall asleep to Kansas City Royals games with Denny Matthews.
Does that sound more like Johnny Carson or Denny Matthews to you?
Escobar at the plate.
Yeah, no, he's not bad.
280,
not bad.
287 this year.
Because Carson's a little more up here, right?
Carson's up here.
Right.
Freddie, can we say that on the air, Freddie? Can't say doo-doo on the air.
That's pretty solid.
Denny Matthews is deeper and gravelly.
Right.
There you go.
Yeah, he's a get off my yard kind of guy.
Ask him about the optimism of the Royals this year. If you don't have pitching, you can't win. All right.